Good morning. I'm very excited to be here and with such a tremendous panel of experts to talk about the future of healthcare. The past couple of years have seen an incredible pace of innovation from the healthcare sector in combating the pandemic. We've seen monoclonal antibodies, vaccines, and now even antiviral drugs being produced, developed, authorized in record time. But I think while a lot of attention is paid towards the laboratories and scientists who definitely deserve a lot of credit for getting that done, those drugs can't get into patients without a lot of infrastructure surrounding it. And we've seen a lot of innovation in that space as well. And so that's where I'd love to introduce this topic of how we can keep the pace of innovation going into the future with Joe Ezor at Clario. For the past couple of years, in terms of clinical trials, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people have been enrolled in trials to combat the pandemic. How has that infrastructure been able to keep pace, and what lessons do you think that holds for future drug development?
Yeah, so thanks, Alex. It's been quite fascinating over the period of COVID. A major part of a clinical trial is capturing data from the patient. And so historically, that's meant the patient driving into a clinic or a site to get their readings taken, whether that is cardiac, respiratory, et cetera. And so with the COVID lockdown, that made that difficult. And so the pace of innovation accelerated in the ability to start capturing that information with the right quality that, could still pass regulatory and drug company, kind of standards, if you will, in the home. So the ability to have those readings taken at the house or in their home, eliminate that need for travel, shortens the time, but also eases the burden on the patient. And so we saw that accelerate during clinical trials. You hear people talk about remote trials or decentralized trials, and so that's a big part of that. But you still have to know whether the drug's working and whether it's safe. And so the quality of that information cannot be compromised. In our case, we have a device for capturing lung functionality that now can be done in the home through telemedicine with the clinician. It remotely uploads the information in real time. And so instead of driving in and blowing into a device in a clinic, it can now be done in the home. The leverage of telemedicine and good old-fashioned internet or network technology to real-time measure some lung functionality, and that happens in cardiac and in other different types of endpoint data collection. So expect to see this continue, and it's something we in our company at Clario are investing in heavily.
Well, thanks, Joe. And, Serbi, I'd love to get your take on this because, Y Combinator, I think most people out in the room would associate with, big tech, software, the cloud, and a lot of that technology has been moving into the healthcare sector. And I know Y Combinator has several biotech and digital health companies in its portfolio. What kinds of trends are you seeing kind of building on this pace of acceleration through the pandemic? And where are investors putting their money? Where are founders wanting to fill gaps?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing the same trends that Joe is. So there's acceleration in a lot of different areas. And one of them right now is certainly at-home diagnostics. We're seeing more and more companies look at mail-in options that make sort of the traditional having to go to the lab in certain cases, of course, for certain tests, more and more obsolete. We're seeing sort of at-home even outside of the mail-in, having to go to the drugstore to pick up a diagnostic. A lot of those companies started with working with COVID, and when that became more and more saturated, of course, they found other applications for the technology. So I'm pretty excited to see what happens in that at-home diagnostic space over the next couple of years. And of course, a similar impact on digital health. Especially if a company is working on very specific interventions for a given clinical indication, they tend to do really well. Investors tend to be investing more heavily in that space than what I've seen previously.
So that's fantastic. And but another area, of course, digital health big area of investment, but we've also seen a lot of biotech investment. And I think one technology we've seen really pan out is obviously the mRNA vaccines, but that technology doesn't just underline vaccines, of course, but also other biologic drugs. And that's why, Nicole, very excited to talk to you because your company is doing exciting work in therapeutics for gene therapy. And can you talk a little bit about what Beam's doing and this kind of next gen gene therapy you're working on?
Yeah, so we do gene editing, and what that basically is in layman's terms, we're able to manipulate the DNA to potentially cure genetic diseases. And this is a really exciting opportunity in human history, really, because it's the first time that instead of treating the symptoms of a disease with a small molecule, for example, we're actually able to correct the disease on a genetic level. So gene editing has been around for a while. So there's been tools in the past, but they haven't been very precise. It's, maybe the analogy of using a jackhammer that you can't really get to the precise place in the genome you're looking to do. But now with the onset of CRISPR-Cas9, which many people I'm sure have heard about in the news, this is a really great molecular machine that was discovered by Jennifer Doudna, and many labs across the world have since harnessed its power. It's sort of a GPS homing system that you can use to give some instructions to, if you will, to precisely target the area of the genome you're looking to correct. So a lot of biotech companies now are utilizing CRISPR-Cas9 to tackle diseases such as sickle cell disease. So this is an ex vivo treated disease, and at Beam Therapeutics, we use a next generation gene editing type of technology in which we use CRISPR-Cas9, but we also add another enzyme that allows us to do chemistry on the genome. So now we're taking something more refined than a jackhammer, but we have a tool that's a bit more precise. So you can think of it more of as a pencil and eraser. So we can go right into the spot that we're trying to correct, erase, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but erase the letter of the code that is misspelled in the genome that causes the disease and sort of rewrite it into the letter it's supposed to be. And by doing that, you genetically do not have that disease anymore. And potentially that's a lifelong cure. And that's a different age of medicine that we're in. It's quite exciting. Additionally, the vaccines have been utilizing all this mRNA technology, and we as well, and in gene editing and gene therapy, use mRNA as well to deliver the molecular machines into cells. So we're leveraging some of that technology and all the development that had to go into creating the vaccines and other things to further advance gene editing types of technology. So, every scientist stands on the shoulders of others. It's never this one scientist light bulb moment and all of a sudden you have, the answer. And especially in this age of, really being interconnected and interdependent in different types of disciplines, we really are benefiting from the collective knowledge and innovation that's happening across all different types of sectors to enable this really great advancement in human history and medicine. And it's really an exciting time to be a part of this community.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think we're seeing kind of an acceleration of a lot of things that people have been working on, for years. And I'm curious, in terms of the target, sickle cell, is there a particular reason why that's the first disease that you're going after?
So there's a lot of reasons to look at a sickle cell disease. A big reason is there's a lot of patient needs. So right now, a lot of folks use a small molecule. The life expectancy isn't a full life expectancy of a normal, healthy person. It also turns out, because it's a hemoglobinopathy, you can treat this with an ex vivo therapy. And what that means is you can extract cells. I'm really simplifying this, but extracting cells from a person treat those cells outside of the body to do the gene edit to correct that DNA, and then you put the cells back into the body. So the barrier for getting your molecular machine to do the manipulation you need to do to correct the DNA is easier, in the respect that you're manipulating in a laboratory, if you will. But the future of genetic medicines is definitely in vivo. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we're in the day of, you know, again, oversimplifying, but injecting a CRISPR-Cas9 modified protein into somebody's body for a lung disease, and the person no longer has that. So that's where the real innovation is happening right now. There's an expansive landscape of things that one could pursue to enable that that future, and that's exciting. But again, everything that happens in the future is built upon, you know, what is happening now. So all the advancements we're making for ex vivo types of therapies will definitely inform and build, you know, brick by brick, the path to doing the in vivo types of applications.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. And I think another great aspect of looking at sickle cell disease is that it is a disease that impacts a population that tends to be underrepresented in who's getting treatments, and also who is able to show up in clinical trials. Joe, I'd love to talk a little bit about how having at-home clinical trials and being able to do this remotely, what does this mean for being able to get trials into populations that have historically been underrepresented in these types of tests?
Yeah, as you mentioned, that's been a big challenge, I think, as drugs come to market, to be able to test a broader set of the population to get the right diversity, if you will. And so when more and more of the information can be captured at home, people that don't have access perhaps to driving to a clinic or to getting, you know, hours away to get the whatever reading is needed to be taken now can participate more effectively, both within a country, but also across country. So it also enables a broader global scale, you know, kind of an approach to trials, so that it can go across countries and then also reach a more diverse population, a broader set of the population inside a given country. And so this move to more remote, decentralized, in-home data capture technologies in combination with still, you know, the site and the clinic is never going to go away completely. It's things like MRIs and CAT scan imaging. It's tough to do at home for now, but then, you know, but the at-home component allows a broader reach, if you will, in the trial. And I think there's a lot more effort now being put onto the patient experience. So how easy for the patient to interact with the trial. So whether that's, you know, how to sign on, if you will, just to log in, you know, from home, or whether that's, you know, how they're recruited and included in to a trial. There's much more significant and I think very impressive effort going in that regard.
Great. And Surabhi, I'd be curious to know if you're seeing this kind of trend of ease of use, better experience in other aspects of healthcare as well, because I know, speaking from my own personal experience, I've never really gone to like a doctor's website and been like, oh man, it's so easy to get what I need to get. So I'd love to know how some of the expertise, you know, in consumer facing software for like social media, things like that, are we going to see that migrating to healthcare?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing so much of that. You know, there's more and more companies. If you search a certain clinical indication, a patient searches a certain clinical indication. Before, you know, the web was a great, or could be a source of information. And now, you know, you could potentially get your prescription medications sent to you at home. Also related to this topic, we're seeing healthcare innovation go global. And so you'll see more and more US investment in overseas companies. So we had a great company focused on polycystic ovarian syndrome, Vera Health out of India. You know, 54 Gene, of course, is based in Africa. So I think this sort of increased access to resources and innovation is causing this global spark in innovation as well.
So the trend toward decentralization, being able to do more at home, I really do think is going to revolutionize a lot of things. But I am curious, and Joe, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. In the clinic, you've got doctors, nurses, folks who are trained in making sure the equipment's on right, that we got the right fit. How do you maintain the quality and integrity of the data for a clinical trial when people are remote, when they're doing this at home?
Yes, so there's a few different components to that, Alex. There's a training component, so that whether they're in the clinic or the patient at home, they need to know the protocol and the exact steps to follow, and to make sure that everyone is trained effectively on how to basically capture that patient data. So that's a very big part of the trial process. Second part of it is the technology itself has to pass all kinds of regulatory hurdles to be able to be approved to capture the data in a quality way. So I mentioned that spirometer, that home lung capacity measurement tool that we have. That had to go through FDA and other regulatory approvals before it could qualify that it delivered the right quality of information. And then I think the third thing, just to call out, would be that there's medical and science expertise in some kind of quality control process, where we're constantly, or people that are running trials are constantly evaluating the quality of the information and making sure that it meets the standards. And that's done both with experts and radiologists or cardiologists or respiratory experts, but also through technology and AI, in qualifying and quantifying the accuracy of that data. So multiple dimensions to make sure that happens, but a lot of attention goes into that. So even as trials accelerate and become more remote, people can trust the effectiveness of the trial.
And Serbi, I'm curious with what you're seeing in the companies that you work with. We're seeing more, telemedicine, at-home diagnostics. I guess similar question. What are you seeing in terms of, making sure that we maintain quality as we're decentralizing healthcare?
Yeah, at this point, Y Combinator has over 300 investments in early stage health-related, everything from therapeutics to digital health investments, which I think makes us the largest early stage investor in healthcare. And it's just one of our mantras that, we want to do good for the world and make things that people really want. So I think fundamentally, when you have founder-led bio programs and companies, that's what you get. A lot of us go into this. I was a founder of a company that did early stage detection of ovarian cancer before it was acquired by Boston Scientific. And a lot of us get into this because we want to make a positive impact in the world. So I think there's some fundamental sort of drive that keeps people on the right track, but also to really educate as people are going to the digital health realm, the importance of clinical trials, the importance of regulations and meeting them. And, like you said, not necessarily building things that break things. It's not a great mantra for healthcare, of course.
Yeah. So we're running a little bit short on time, but I want to show my age a little bit here and mention in The Graduate, the main character is told that the future can be expressed in one word, and that's plastics. But I want to ask you guys, future of healthcare, one word. Joe, what's that word?
I have to use the word digital, way overused, but I'm going to go with that word.
All right, Nicole, future of healthcare, one word.
Biotechnology.
All right, and Serbi, you got to figure out something that's not one of those two things.
I feel like, we're just like naming parts of healthcare, right? So isn't what's left like diagnostics?
There you go.
Digital therapeutics and diagnostics.
All right, perfect. Well, Joe, Nicole, Serbi, thank you so much for your comments. I think this is a fascinating discussion. We probably could have kept going for another couple of hours, but then they'd really get mad at me and the orchestra would be playing and it would just be a mess. So let's not do that. Thanks to all of you, and thanks all of you for watching.
Thank you.